And we're live. Good morning, good day, good evening, and hello, and welcome to the Sasquatch Army. I'm Dave Jackson. Here joining me is Lance Windsor, all the way from Ontario, Canada. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
So yeah, I just want to preface this podcast by saying, welcome. It's a new podcast. Hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully we can crank one of these out every week for you with some new Sasquatch news, stories, anything entertaining, new sightings. Everyday Sasquatch. Yeah, what were you going to say? I thought I heard you say something there. So, actually, what I think we should do is start with your stories. Lance lives in Ontario, and he's got quite a few stories to tell about his neck of the woods involving Sasquatch. Why don't you give the listeners the story you were telling me?
Okay, well, it's been going on for, I'd say, at least 6 years now anyway. It started back 6 years ago. I had an encounter when I was younger, but I still had problems with believing with what I had seen. And then just over the past couple of years there, I've listened to other people's encounters on the internet. People talking, saying certain things and whatnot. So I'd come up with my own way to approach it to see if there was actually anything to it.
So even though you saw it, you were still doubting it?
Yeah, well, big time. I still, even to this day, I think, like, what are the odds of that happening? It still boggles my mind.
You're one of the lucky ones.
Actually happening to me, you know?
You're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, the first time, I wouldn't say it was lucky. I'm sorry.
Oh, dying over there, are we?
Yeah, really. But it started off with just going outside of town, going into a clear-cut area of the forest, following the logging trails. And I drove in for about, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes. Got to a spot where I couldn't drive over with my truck anymore. And I proceeded to walk up the trail to roughly, I don't know, maybe 300-400 feet. Enough so like I couldn't see my vehicle anymore. I found it kind of strange at the time before I did it because it was just really quiet in the forest. No birds, no nothing. It was just dead. So I did one of my calls to see if I would get a response. And surprisingly, I did. I got 4 thumps on the ground, like ground pounding. It was really loud.
Did you feel it?
You could feel it take the ground. And as soon as that happened, that's when I said, okay, you know what? There is something to this. I'm going home.
I'm out.
And I turned around and went right back down the trail, got in my truck and left. And that's when, after that encounter...
What was going through your mind when you got into the truck after that happened to you? Like, how were you feeling at that moment?
I was panicking on the inside, but on the outside I was staying extremely calm, if that makes any sense.
It does.
My inner self was telling me to run, just get in the truck and go, but my outer self was telling me just be calm, don't run, walk back, be cool, do what you would normally do, everything's going to be okay. I figured if I did anything, you know, like run, any of those things, it might trigger a hunt response. And
kind of like a bear.
Yeah. And
like a grizzly bear.
You hear so much of...
Or a mountain lion.
The forest by themselves and disappearing that I was not going to be that person. Just the thought of that.
Yeah, you're probably thinking back to it now.
Yeah, kind of gives you the willies when you think about it. I just went back to the truck calmly. I disarmed myself, got back to the truck, and got home. And I remember this vividly. For at least 2 weeks, I just sat there and just pondered that whole incident. Like, okay, now what's the next step? What do I do? How do I take? What do I take from this? Learn from it, and then try something else. And then it was like, I believe it was that winter, I went to another spot.
You remember about what?
Here.
You remember about what year it was?
2016.
All right.
Winter of 2016, January, mid-January, till 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, you can continue.
I remember that. It was about mid-January, minus 16 outside.
Celsius, right?
Yeah.
I still can't wrap my head around Celsius.
And I just had an idea to check out this other spot in the forest. And it almost seems like these, to me, or for me, I don't know what it is. They're everywhere. I went to this spot and I didn't even get out into the field yet. I stayed back about 20 feet just in the tree line across from me. And up on the hill, the classic line, there was one standing there. And it was looking north or away from me. And I watched it bring its head down, look along the other side. It did a double take with its head, saw me, and then just stepped back into the bush. And it was gone like as quick as I saw it. At the time that happened, I ended up to pareidolia.
Mm-hmm. Could you describe what it looked like? Could you describe what it looked like? Was it was shaggy, or was it close to the body hair?
To me, it looked like it pretty well kept. It felt pretty well kept. Had a lot of hair, like hair all over its body. You couldn't really see much of the face for the hair. But on the other hand, it was too far back for me to get any look of facial features.
Mm-hmm.
But just the overall body image, I'm guessing it was a male.
So, not like Patty.
The shoulders and all that were huge.
So not like Patty, which you could see obvious breasts.
Yeah,
but this was at a distance.
There was no signs of breast on this thing. Like I know here in Northern Ontario, we can get some pretty good large moose. And if I could do a comparison with because in that same spot I just happened to see a female moose. Not this past summer, but the summer before in the same area. And this female moose, the only way I can compare it to size was that the moose was like a Great Dane in comparison. That's how big it was.
That's pretty big.
It had to be at least 10, maybe even more feet tall. It was almost as tall as the trees, the pine trees it was in front of. But like I said, it took maybe one step back and it was gone. As quick as I saw it, it was gone.
And where did you go from there?
From that point on, I continued down the trail reluctantly, but I did about maybe another 300 feet, and I decided to try a different call. Like, the reason why I'm saying call is I don't I don't want people repeating something and get themselves in trouble or hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So all I'll say is I'm using First Nations language.
Okay.
I did a call, one of mine that I thought of, and then across the frozen marsh or pond or whatever you want to call it there, the chipmunks and squirrels just started going nuts. Like, I mean crazy, like something was after them. But that's all you could hear, with the occasional crunch on the ground. And I was like, okay, what the hell is that? Then everything went dead quiet again. I made another call. Again, the chipmunks and squirrels went absolutely crazy, and then I could hear something walking. But I couldn't see it yet. Then by the time I did a third call, that's when I could see it was either its arm or its leg in behind the trees, but it would not totally reveal itself. It was just like peeking. And I was looking at it going, oh my God, what am I looking at? And it was like kind of rocking back and forth, but it was doing peaks. It would peek out, go behind. Peek out, go behind. And that's when everything started clicking in my brain at that time. That what I saw on the hill is what I saw, and I just walked into a hunting area. He has the high ground, the other one has the low ground, and they're just waiting for things to come in along the frozen waterway. And they just pick it off. Because that's generally the main access areas for the wildlife here in the wintertime. When everything freezes over, you've got all the water, all the ponds, all the lakes that are just wide open so you can walk across them, no problem. And during that realization to myself, I turned around to look up the hill behind me, and that's when I saw the other one's head duck down. So I couldn't see him, but I saw him up there.
Now, during
so
that time, did you
left my offerings that I brought? I brought 2 big apples.
During that time, did you ever feel threatened, or?
At that time, I felt I was nervous. I wouldn't say I was totally in fear at that time, but I figured if I left them something, they would be preoccupied with what I left them rather than myself. So I took the apples that I had out on me because I was going to actually eat them. And I figured, nope, I'm going to leave them here. I stuck them on a tree. And then I just slowly backed my way back out the way I came. I got inside my truck, got maybe 20 feet down the road, and then I snapped inside my truck. I started wrenching on the steering wheel. I started punching the windshield. I started punching the dashboard. I just started freaking out because I know what I just did and how stupid that would have been and how easily I could have died. And then when I got home, I told my brother what happened, and he was like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. And of course, that didn't help, not being believed.
Well, it is too regular. Most people, deniers and all that, not necessarily deniers, but people who just haven't experienced something like that. It's a tough subject to get people to believe, especially, seeing a Sasquatch or seeing anything that you think is a Sasquatch, trying to explain it to somebody else. They're either going to say, oh, cool, or they're probably going to make fun of you. Say, yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, 3 days later, he changed his mind when they showed up at the back of the house.
What happened there?
Well, at the time, even kind of now, the only difference between me and my brother is that he's got short hair and I've got long hair. but we both had goatees and that. We kind of looked similar.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I can think of at the time, but he came out of the back little garage thing we have done up like his little living quarters. He came out and went to the backyard to go for a leak. And he said when he was out there, something started wood knocking. And he called me on the phone and just said, I was in the backyard. And I was like, yeah, okay, why tell me? And he said, well, something started wood knocking. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And he goes, yeah, no, I'm not kidding. And I was like, hold on, I'll be right there. And by the time I got downstairs, he was already in the house telling me not to go. No, don't go. Just stay here. Don't go. And I was like, nothing's going to happen, man. I'll just walk out there a little bit and see what I can see. Of course, I couldn't see anything because it was so dark. And I did one thing I shouldn't have done. I turned my flashlight on just to see if I could get eye shine or anything. But all I could hear were footsteps walking away. And that was the last time they ever came to the house or anything like that. Since then, I've just been going to that spot where I've had that encounter a few times, and it's been interesting.
It sounds interesting to me. On that note, why don't we take a small break? You got any stories to come back with? Like what you're doing now? Lance, buddy?
Yeah.
You got any stories to come back with when we come back from the break?
From that point on? Absolutely not.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back shortly. And we are back. I think at this point, let's jump into some news, shall we? I guess we'll start off with kind of a somber one. Skunk ape investigator Tim Fasano has passed away. He would have been 63 years old. The rumor was spreading that he died of a snake bite, but that was unfounded. It was allegedly a heart attack. He's been a big researcher into Bigfoot. He had a Sasquatch channel, Florida Sasquatch, over 12,000 subscribers and 8 million views. He described himself as a filmmaker, a hiker, Bigfoot hunter, and photographer. I love camping and outdoors, and in the last 10 years, the wilderness had become my friend. Our hopes go out and our prayers to the Fasano family in this sad time for them.
Yes, very much so.
Moving on, and from that to something funny, apparently. In Como County, where was this? This is from My SA. Como County Crime Stoppers is offering a reward up to $6,000 for information leading to the arrest of a woman known to law enforcement officials as Sasquatch. According to the Como County Crime Stoppers, 27-year-old Sally Megan Duncan, a.k.a. Sasquatch, is wanted for possession of a controlled substance and is also accused of tampering with physical evidence. Duncan, who has dark hair and hazel eyes, weighs about 130 pounds, is 5'2". Anyone who has seen Duncan or knows about her whereabouts is asked to submit their tip to Crime Stoppers by calling 830-620-8477 or 800-640-8422. So anybody out there from Como County sees Sasquatch anywhere, that's the number you gotta call. You might get a reward.
I could use that money.
Moving on. Anybody hear about the missing Sasquatch statue? That was big in the news a while ago.
The missing what now?
The missing Sasquatch statue.
No, I didn't hear about this one.
Yeah, it was taken from a landscaping company in Linville, North Carolina. The sheriff's office has been looking for it forever. And they finally found the statue, guess where? Exactly where you'd think it'd be. In the middle of the woods. So it was taken from a landscaping company in August.
Brought back home.
Yeah. The Avery County Sheriff's Office and other people in the area were searching for the statue for months, and someone just found it in a remote area more than 30 minutes away from the landscaping company itself. The Sheriff's Office said a man named Mike was going through a remote area when he saw a Sasquatch. He contacted them, and they were able to trace it back. They were quoted as saying, "We feel since Sasquatch seemed unharmed and released in such a remote area, the thieves either had a change of heart or found that having a Sasquatch was just more difficult than they thought." The statue is 6 feet tall and weighs 180 pounds, so that must not have been easy to carry. Didn't seem like...
enough to hide it.
Yeah. It must have been recently dropped off there, said Sheriff Kevin Fry to CNN. For now, the Sasquatch is under camera surveillance at the Avery County Sheriff's Office. It's currently residing under camera watch, he said. We don't want it to get away again, so it's in closed quarters. Fry also said he wasn't damaged and he seems to be in relatively good health.
Well, sounds like they fed him well.
Indeed. Now this is coming from NBC Montana. Mythical or mysterious? Search for Bigfoot alive among Montana believers. This comes from Columbia Falls, Montana. On any given day in a forest in the Pacific Northwest, you can find people searching for proof of a mysterious creature. Yes, I do believe in Bigfoot, Joe Hauser said on a late summer day at the Montana Vortex and House of Mystery outside Glacier National Park. He walks the grounds every day. He bought the property to study the electromagnetic anomalies that occur in the area, and he'd be the first to tell you about the weird things that happen there. He is quoted as saying, "A lot of people come in totally skeptical, then they leave and go. I don't know what's going on here, but there's definitely something going on here," Hauser said. Also, Hauser's first encounter with a Sasquatch took place gold mining in California in 1983. He's quoted as saying, "We heard some really big loud screams and whoops. It was like a howler monkey on steroids." He turned to his partner and said, "What the heck is that?" His partner said, "Oh, that's Bigfoot. Haven't you heard of him yet?" It took 24 more years before Hauser actually saw a Sasquatch at the ever-popular Avalanche Lake in Glacier Park with his son. His son looks across the lake, according to the account, said, "Hey Dad, there's two Bigfoot walking across that snowfield there." And sure enough, big strides, great big arm swings, arms down to their knees, and we had about a 5-minute sighting of it walking across the snowfield. Hauser also says Bigfoot will knock on his house at night and leave signs on his walkways after he's raked them. Many people in the area say that most people don't talk about it because there's kind of a stigma to it, and people think you're crazy because you saw a Bigfoot or you heard something. Now, that sounds like what you were thinking as well when your brother had that same response before he experienced what he did as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Some people do talk about it. There are thousands of reports on the BFRO website, of course. This also comes from the article I'm reading. Run by reality show personality Matt Moneymaker of Finding Bigfoot fame. It includes photos and audio recordings and descriptions of sightings, including hundreds of Montana sightings from Missoula to Malta. So where's the evidence? There's been bones. DNA studies have been done. There's another DNA study being done right now, says Hauser. He couldn't comment on the studies, but said they're being done at reputable universities, and that some of the DNA was collected at his vortex. He's quoted as saying, "They like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and if you put double-faced tape on the outside and they pick up the bowl, it leaves hair and skin follicles. And then if you put a different variety of food in there, they'll sample it. They don't like Skittles or M&Ms, so they'll put it in their mouth and spit it back out into the bowl, and there's your saliva. There are DNA tests being done right now. And until those test results come back, the question remains, does Bigfoot exist in Montana?"
More than likely.
That'll end the quick news segment here. Just a couple of little interesting articles. Now comes story time. You want to hear a story?
Sure.
Short
I'm
one.
always up for a good story.
This one comes from Lon Strickler of Phantoms and Monsters, also another good podcast. All links will be in the description down below. This one is entitled, "She'll Never Forget the Face of Bigfoot." I'm from South Florida, and my mom, her brother, and 2 uncles swear by this story. One of my uncles doesn't even like talking about it, so here it goes. My mom was a freshman in high school and living in Jupiter Farms, Florida. My grandma had to work that day and asked her 2 brothers to come watch my mom and uncle. My uncle was about 4 years younger and had Down syndrome, so the extra help was needed. For dinner, my mom's uncles were grilling on the porch when they heard a horrible noise in the distance. They were never able to describe this noise other than saying it was not human and not animal. My mom had 2 dogs who immediately took off barking and running in the direction of the sound. A few seconds later, they were running back to my mom's house in fear. My mom said everyone looked in the direction the dogs had just come from and saw this massive being coming from the woods. They said it was about 7 feet tall and as wide as a door frame. They immediately went inside and locked all of the doors, grabbed the guns, turned the lights off, and sat together in the living room. My uncle, who has Down syndrome, was visibly shaken and upset. My mom went to get a board game from her room to help calm him down, and while she was in the room, she decided to peek out her window to see if the creature was still there. She says that when opened the window, the creature was standing directly in front of it, staring in. My mom said she screamed bloody murder, and my uncles came running in and were frozen in shock and fear. One of them yanked my mom by the arm, and they slammed the door behind them, huddling in the living room once again. My grandma came home from work a few hours later, to them all crouching together in the living room. It's been over 20 years since this happened, and my mom and her uncles swear by this story. My mom says to this day that she'll never forget the face of Bigfoot, and will get really crazy upset when people tell her that she's lying. She says she knows it's crazy, and she didn't believe it either, but she saw it, and there's no denying that. She goes on to say, "One time my dad was dropping my mom off at home after a date, and as they were talking outside of her house, a few rows of trees began shaking violently, as if someone was tearing them down. My mom immediately ran inside, and Dad took off to his car." You'll be able to find that, along with many other stories, in the link provided below for Phantoms and Monsters. Lon Strickler, he's a very interesting character. Posts a lot of cool stuff. Well, that'll about wrap up today's show. We're going to continue Lance's story next week for another episode of Sasquatch Army. We'll see you later.
Good night, everybody.